So let's talk about something that's been blowing up the cattle circles lately. Yeah, I'm talking about the American Angus Association's methane study, funded in part by none other than the Bezos Earth Fund.
It's more complicated than that.
You heard that right. If you don't know, Jeff Bezos, the billionaire behind Amazon, is now helping fund cattle research. And ranchers across the United States are split on whether this is a good idea or if this is a Trojan horse in a cowboy hat. So here's some context. I made a video poking a little fun at the marketing mishap with this announcement, and I stated that I was not taking sides on the subject in the caption. Apparently, people were not a fan of my indifference, but here's the thing, I will never take sides on something that I don't know or I don't have the research or studies behind it for myself. My job is to bring facts and information, not gut feelings and fear-mongering.
No way.
So with that being said, I did my homework. Now let's break it down. Okay, so April 2025, the Bezos Earth Fund, through a partnership with the Global Methane Hub, announced a $27.4 million global livestock initiative. The goal, breeding animals that naturally emit less methane, which they call a low-cost, high-impact climate solution. Anyway, the science behind it isn't exactly new. Back in 2023, a study was done in the journal Dairy Science showing that some cattle naturally emit up to 30% less methane than others. So it's just off their genetics. So instead of regulating producers or changing the entire food production system, this program wants to use genetic selection quietly to breed lower emission cattle over time. Now, let's get into the money side of things.
Silence and money.
The Angus Foundation, through the Angus Genetics Inc., which is called AGI, was awarded $4.85 million to study low methane traits in registered Angus cattle across North America, Oceania, and in Europe. Now, the project will measure about 4,600 animals in the United States, track their methane levels, and eventually see how that data fits in with existing breeding tools and selection indexes. The data will come from real ranchers using portable methane collection equipment. But that is just one slice of the pie. The full breakdown of the Bezos Earth Fund looks like this. $2.34 million go to the University of Nebraska to study low methane beef genetics in commercial and in crossbreed herds. $8.7 million will go to a university in the Netherlands to speed up low emission breeding in dairy cattle like Holsteins, Jerseys, Brown Swiss, and red breeds. And then $3.35 million will go to the International Livestock Research Institute in Kenya, and they will focus on the methane efficiency in indigenous African cattle. A lot of producers, especially in the United States, are asking, why is Bezos involved in cattle research at all? The guy has no background in ranching, and his climate fund has supported groups that don't exactly have a great past and track record with agriculture. That alone makes folks a bit uneasy.
What did you expect? Welcome, Sonny. Make yourself at home.
Then there's the fear about data control and transparency. What happens to all this methane data once it's collected? Could it be used to justify future regulations or ESG-driven mandates? The Angus Association insists that the answer is no, and they've been publicly said that the Bezos has zero control over the research design data and how the results will be used. Data is anonymized and breeders aren't identified. And the Angus board alone will decide if or how any of this gets included into future EPDs or breeding indexes. But let's be real, when it comes to outside money and global climate initiatives, trust can be hard to come by.
Trust me.
That's why this grant has stirred up so much controversy. Some ranchers say that we should have refused the money entirely because once you accept funding from people with the anti-livestock agendas, the door is open to unintended consequences. But then there's others who argue that this is about being proactive. If we don't collect methane data, somebody else will, and they'll control the narrative. This way, ranchers can stay in the driver's seat with tools that could also help with feed efficiency, economic returns, not just emissions. Let's not forget, feed costs are a rancher's biggest expense, and methane is literally lost energy. If selecting for lower methane also means more efficient, better performing cattle, that's something worth looking into if it is done right. So what does Bezos get out of all this anyways? not money, at least not directly. The Earth Fund is a nonprofit, but when he gains his influence, global credibility, is seated at the table in shaping climate policy, food systems, and the future of animal agriculture is at hand. And like it or not, this is becoming a data game. Those who hold the data hold the power. So where do we go from here? This methane project, it's underway. It's happening, and we owe it to ourselves as producers to stay informed, ask the hard questions, and make sure that this serves the ranching community, not just a climate headline. Because if there's one thing we've learned, it is this: if we do not tell our story, somebody else will. Because here's the bigger picture. Methane research is already happening. It's happening all over the world. And in some countries, it has led to producers being forced out of business. Literally eliminating parts of production agriculture just to meet climate targets. That can't be our story. We can't afford to sit back and let global headlines dictate how we ranch. So maybe now, while cattle numbers are low, a historical low, it is actually the smart time to do this kind of research. It could give us the tools to make genetic progress on our terms, not on somebody else's. But if we stay involved, stay vocal, and in control of where this goes, and I think that's the only way. But I want to hear from you on this. Do you think this methane study helps or hurts cattle producers in the long run? Be sure to drop a comment and let's talk about it. Let me know what you think. And as always, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe for more.